Hey, what's going on, everyone? And I want to start this video off by first saying that when I first heard, a couple years ago, that Netflix was going to be making a live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, all I got were Winter Soldier flashbacks of the 2010 travesty, which was the live-action Last Airbender movie. That movie is notorious for being a complete steaming pile of crap. It is one of, if debatably, the worst movie ever created. There's only one movie I can think of off the top of my head that I think is actually worse than The Last Airbender from 2010, and that's Dragon Ball Evolution. And having to witness Dragon Ball Evolution, that movie, is the equivalent of having a drill stuck into your ears and eyes. The Last Airbender is a steaming pile of garbage. And then there was all this news that came out in the weeks leading up to the release of the show. There was news coming out that they were removing, the whole arc on Kyoshi Island, where Sokka is basically being sexist and, he's being stupid. Oh, women can't fight, and he's proved that that is a stupid way of thinking in the show. And they also released some statement that they were trying to appeal to Game of Thrones fans, which of course is a brilliant decision, to take a children's beloved cartoon and turn it into something that appeals to Game of Thrones fans. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And personally, what I think about Avatar: The Last Airbender is you can make a strong case, in my opinion, for Avatar: The Last Airbender being the best American cartoon ever created. It is a absolute masterpiece enjoyed by all ages. I have watched it 3 times throughout my lifetime. I watched it when it was first airing as a child. I watched it again when I was in high school, and I watched it again in college as an adult, and I loved it all 3 times. This is a beloved cartoon from my childhood that I was not ready to see get butchered again in live action form like it was in 2010. So let me first start off by saying thank God, guys, we avoided the worst. We avoided that bullet. That bomb did not go off. If anyone says it's as bad as the 2010, they are straight up lying. It is not as bad as the 2010 movie, which isn't a hard barrier to overcome, admittedly. But guys, the worst case scenario has been avoided, so we can, applaud that. So I want to start off this video by going over things that I liked about the live action adaptation. I thought the casting, in particular for Aang and Zuko, was very well done. Just overall, I feel like the casting was pretty well done. I have to admit, as an Asian person, I really did like the fact that the majority, if not, I think all of the actors in this show are, from Asian descent or maybe Native American and Inuit descent. I feel like it's pretty obvious in the cartoon that there is a very Asian derivative culture that's present in the Avatar world. As an Asian person, it was nice to see that they are actually demonstrating that in the show. I mean, I just saw so many Asian actresses and actors that I recognized in this production, and that was just something that I thought was a very smart choice. The performances overall, I felt like were pretty good, but yes, as I said, in particular, I enjoyed Aang and Zuko. I saw some things online. People were complaining about Zuko's tantrums that he throws and everything like that. Like I said, I think the Zuko actor did a fantastic job, and he definitely personified the character correctly. Zuko is debatably my favorite character from the original cartoon. Another character I thought was very well cast was Iroh. I feel like the actor who portrayed Iroh did a good job of, keeping that light air about him, but not being overly comedic. That also applies to Sokka as well. I've said this in the One Piece live adaptation video as well, but there's only so much that a real person can convey when you compare it to animation. So you can't do it one-to-one. So I understand that they had to dumb down kind of the comic relief hilarity that Sokka and Iroh usually bring to the series in the cartoon. They had to dumb that down to make it, presentable and not cringy, because it would be if they did do a one-to-one representation as seen from Cowboy Bebop. I've already said this. The Ed example, that was just so cringe because they kept it one-to-one. The whole point I'm trying to break here is casting, I think, is a good point in the show. Another good point in the show is the visuals. I was very impressed with the bending, especially compared to the 2010 adaptation. Whenever I think of the bending from the 2010 adaptation, all I think about is just that one scene where they're in that the Earth Kingdom town, and there's the 6 guys doing the freaking, and then there's another guy doing like all these weird, he's doing like a zillion hand motions, and all they're doing is take 7 guys and they're moving a single rock. That is the only thing they are doing. And I just felt like in the 2010, way too much movement for what is actually happening. They are moving around so much, and just like a little water drop is just moving very slowly, listing to the right. Like it's just it was a weird portrayal of bending. So I was very dubious that we could do the bending correctly, but luckily they did the bending, I think, very well. The fight choreography, and there's a lot of fighting in the live action adaptation. So the fight choreography was very well done. Definitely communicates, I feel, that these people are superhuman. Like they have superpowers basically, and it feels like I'm watching like a superpower fight. You know, they're flipping around, they're zooming, and you know, all this stuff. I did like the visuals and the combat choreography. I thought that was a highlight of the show. I guess the one negative I would say is particular with water bending, which is my favorite bending style. So I think I'm a little more hypercritical of water bending. First of all, it was weird when like Katara would hit someone with water and they wouldn't like be wet after. Like there's the scene where she hits Paku with the water whip and he is completely dry after. Like that just felt, that was like, obviously they're not hitting him with real water, but like it just felt a little weird. The water bending also seemed to lack like impact. Like fire isn't a solid object either that like you hit like a hammer. Like it's not like that, but they made the fire bending have like an impact when it hit someone, because it would like explode into like a cloud and they would like get pushed around and you could see the impact of the fire bending. Whereas the water bending just felt like it just didn't feel like there was much force happening when they were hit with the water. It just felt like they were kind of dinked abound and like just pushed, I guess. I don't know. To me, the water bending just seemed a little weird, and the visuals were a little weak with water bending in particular. But overall, the bending, vast improvement from you know, anything in the 2010. I really enjoyed the visuals on the bending side, which they had to nail. That was very important that they nailed that, and they did. Now I want to get into a couple things relating to the story. I didn't want to make this whole video just comparing it to the cartoon, but there are a few things that really irked me when I compared it to the cartoon. So overall, guys, it's unrealistic to have expected them to do a complete one-to-one, you know, adaptation of the original cartoon. Not only would that be entirely pointless to create, it's just not feasible for what they had. Just for like the structure of how the Netflix series is, you know, it's 8 like 50-minute episodes as opposed to these 20-minute episodes that they worked with back when it was on Nickelodeon. I know somewhere someone reported that like overall the runtime of the season is relatively the same for it, but because it's longer episodes, like they just had to mash things together that didn't get mashed together in the original series, and that resulted in a lot of the plot lines from the original that were crammed into the Netflix adaptation to really not have the room to breathe that they needed. The example in particular I'm talking about is episodes 3 and 4, in which they crammed in the Omashu, the Teo Machinist plotline, and the Jet plotline. They all did it all in one setting. In the original cartoon, these plot lines didn't have anything to do with each other. They were in the Northern Air Temple for Teo, and then they went to Omashu for Boomy, and then I can't remember where they were for Jet, but they were not in Omashu when the stuff with Jet going on. Like I even like had to do a double take. Like I was like, it's been a long time since I've seen the cartoon, but I do not remember Jet being in Omashu. Like I was like, what's going on here? What we have with these episodes is you're getting 3 plot lines that don't really have anything to do with each other mashed together, and it just kind of feels disjointed because like they're manufacturing like links, like, you know, having Teo report to the king, and like, oh, Jet wants to take out the king, so we're like moving it in or whatever. These plot lines really kind of played out in complete solitude despite the links in the story that they created for the Netflix adaptation. And it didn't give these plot lines the room to breathe. And that's really the major fault, I think, with the adaptation, is just like there's no room to breathe. Everything is just jammed together. And that brings me to the next point, is what they actually decided to omit from the book 1 content. There are several small things I could talk about that they omitted, but there were 2 scenes or plot lines, I guess you could say, in particular that I thought were egregious that they removed from the live action adaptation. So number 1, the entire plot line of Zhang Zhang is removed from the live action. For anyone out there who hasn't seen the original cartoon, Zhang Zhang is a character that the group meets in season 1 of the cartoon. Basically, he is a deserter of the Fire Nation army. He's a firebending master. They meet him, and Aang wants to take this chance to learn firebending because he's not sure when he'll get another chance to meet a firebender that'll actually be on his side. Zhang Zhang doesn't want to do that because he wants the Avatar to learn the elements in the cycle of reincarnation. So like he wants him to learn water and earth first, because water is, he says, like, water is cool and earth is steady, but like fire is dangerous and uncontrollable, and you need to learn more before you can learn fire. And so he's learning firebending, and he gets bored with the lessons, and he starts playing, he makes fire and he starts playing around with it, and he accidentally burns Katara. That sets up a big plot, character development thing for Aang, in that he's afraid, after that moment, he's afraid of firebending. Like he's afraid to learn firebending because he hurt someone he loved, and he realizes that he needs to be more disciplined with his powers. And this is also the moment where Katara learns about her natural talent for healing abilities with water bending, because she burns her hands and then she sticks them in the water, and then she realizes she has healing powers, and that shows you another thing, that Katara has these talents that she's been given as well. And this whole experience with Zhang Zhang is a major part in it's something that's preventing Aang from becoming a fully realized Avatar, is his hesitation around firebending. So I feel like omitting that from book 1 just doesn't seem right. That is a big plot point. They bring it up like many seasons later, when in book 3, when Aang does actually learn firebending. Another big omission that I was very sad to see not included in the live action is the Agni Kai between Zhao and Zuko. For anyone who hasn't seen the original, once again, at some point, like in between the chase and arriving in the North Pole, there's a scene where Zhao and Zuko actually have a duel, which is called an Agni Kai in the firebending culture. And this is Zuko's first Agni Kai since the last one he had, which was against Ozai. And it's not explicitly stated in the cartoon, which is another big difference I'm going to get into later. But I feel like that whole duel was important for Zuko to overcome the past experience of his last Agni Kai, which was against his father, which is like the character-defining moment for Zuko, is when his father burned him. I don't need to explain everything that happens, but that was also, I felt like, a very noticeable omission from the plot of this story. There's several other changes that I didn't completely agree with. I feel like they showed Ozai too much. Because Ozai is barely, I don't think his face is ever revealed in the first season of Avatar, and he just seems like a more menacing villain because you don't really know, you just hear about it, Fire Lord, but you don't see him. So he just seems like a more menacing villain as opposed to the live action where he shows up every episode. And there's other things like Aang does no waterbending, and why is he not learning waterbending right now? Number 2, Katara is just instantly amazing at waterbending. Why are we not training? There's no practicing here. She studied some scrolls or whatever, but she hasn't had any formal training. So she's just amazing from the get-go. She's a master already. Really? I don't need to talk about every single change because we'd be here all day. But there were a lot of changes that I felt were inferior to the original, and that's because of the runtime and what they had to do with cramming everything into these 8 chunks instead of having them be able to space out and breathe in the episode format that was available when it was a cartoon. The other big negative I have to say on the show is Oh my god, they like to just slap you over the head with exposition. They're doing the classic writing technique of tell, don't show. Because like in the original, when Aang gets released from the ice, you know, Katara basically is the one who pieces it together based on like, oh, Aang doesn't know about the war. Aang has friends from the Fire Nation. Like what is this going on? She's the one who kind of like does the piecing together of, oh, he's the Avatar, he's from 100 years ago kind of thing. In the live action, Gran just goes into this reciting the original like intro segment of the cartoon. I was just like, I was like, what? Oh, there was another scene where it's showing Lieutenant Iroh's son's funeral, and like we are at a funeral, like we are showing a funeral, and they're just like, Iroh's son died. It's like, you don't need to say that, dude. Like, we know his son died. We're at a funeral. There's so many instances of just heavy exposition. It's funny that the live action, which they did make more mature, I agree with that point. Like, they're showing people actually getting killed, people getting lit on fire and zoomed and zanged around by explosions and stuff. It's funny that the more mature adaptation is less subtle with its storytelling than a children's cartoon from like 15 years ago is. And that's just how better the writing was in a children's cartoon, is that they don't have to just bang you over the head with exposition and explanations about everything that is going on and what everyone's feeling. They can just communicate it through their actions and their facial expressions and like tonal stuff, as opposed to the live action where everyone just has to state what they feel, what they think, what's going on every 5 minutes. It just felt so weird to just hear so much exposition like just all the time. So guys, like I said, there's more things I had wrong with the changes, like, you know, certain backstory changes, and there's some more things that I liked. Like I said, I liked that they're actually showing like the horrors of a war and things like that, and I liked the evolution, and you know, they're growing the backstories a little bit from the characters. Like we had Avatar Karuk show up in book 1, which he never did in the original. We get to see more of the past Avatars. We get to see the whole thing with the 41st Regiment with Zuko, which I thought was an amazing addition. I think overall there's more negative changes than there were positive changes, unfortunately. The writing is the real negative of this show, and just like how they decided to present like just info dumps of information, and like just characters just constantly stating everything instead of just showing us. But overall, guys, I don't think this show is shit. I definitely don't think it's like garbage or anything like that. Like, if I had to describe it, I hate using this word, but it is mid. It's not as bad as I was afraid it was going to be, but it's not as good as I wanted it to be. I don't really have a big stance on this one. It's just kind of middle of the road. I think it's inferior to the cartoon in virtually every way. But if you're just like one of those people that don't like watching cartoons, I mean, it's still compelling. Like, it's still the same story from the original cartoon, so it has that going for it. So at the very least, you'll experience a compelling story with an interesting setting. If you just hate cartoons and you're just like, oh, I hate the cartoon world or whatever. But guys, that's my thoughts on the Netflix live action Avatar. I loved the original cartoon, so I wanted to make a video about it and just give my thoughts. Like I said, I don't think it's unredeemable garbage like the 2010 movie was. I just think it definitely, they could have been better. So guys, what did you think of the Netflix Avatar: The Last Airbender series? Did you hate it more than me? Did you love it more than me? Did you think it was mid like I did? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you guys and your feedback. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, please hit that like button to let me know. And if you aren't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out more than you know, and it'll let you know when I post in the future. With that being said, I want to thank you all for watching to the very end of the video, and I will see you all next time. Bye.